Welcome back to Sovereign Judgment, where ordinary homeowners discover that patience is free, paperwork is powerful, and sometimes the only reasonable response to a crooked mailbox complaint is 12 feet of professionally cast bronze poultry. Today's story begins with a mailbox that leaned 3/4 of an inch to the left, and ends with an HOA president publicly arguing with a rooster large enough to have its own weather system. Tell me where you're listening from, because I need to know how many neighborhoods out there are one clipboard away from complete architectural collapse. All right, let me introduce you to Clementine. The first notice arrived on a Tuesday morning at 8:17, tucked beneath the little red flag of my mailbox, as neatly as a threat wrapped in a coupon. The envelope was cream-colored, heavyweight, and embossed with the silver acorn logo of the Briar Glen Homeowners Association. It looked like the kind of stationery a minor European monarchy might use to announce that your duchy had been repossessed. Across the front, in a font normally reserved for funeral homes and expensive olive oil, were the words, "Official Architectural Non-Compliance Notice." I stood beside the road in my pizza-patterned socks, holding a mug of coffee that had already gone cold, and stared at my mailbox. My mailbox stared back. It was a standard black steel box mounted on a cedar post at 1847 Plover Ridge Lane. My late father and I had installed it 14 years earlier, using a level 2 bags of fast-setting concrete, and the confidence of 2 men who had read half the instructions and decided the rest were probably decorative. The post had settled slightly over the years, not collapsed, not cracked, not fallen into the road and begun directing traffic. It leaned 3/4 of an inch to the left. I knew that, because the notice told me. Your residential mail receptacle currently deviates 0.75 inches from approved vertical alignment, it said. Pursuant to Article 7, Section 4.2, Subparagraph C, all exterior fixtures must maintain visual harmony with community standards. The letter gave me 10 days to correct the problem, or face an initial fine of $75, followed by $25 per day. I read it twice. Then I crouched down and looked along the post. 3/4 of an inch. From 20 feet away, the tilt was invisible, unless you were a surveyor, a heron, or a person whose emotional well-being depended on persecuting lumber. My next-door neighbor, Harold Dempsey, was retrieving his newspaper across the street. Harold was 73, wore suspenders with everything, and moved like a folding lawn chair being carefully opened. He saw the envelope. "What you do?" he called. "My mailbox is crooked." Harold squinted at it. Compared to what? Community standards. He crossed the road, leaned sideways, and studied the post from 3 different angles. Looks straighter than my first marriage. That ended badly. Exactly. Nobody find the mailbox. I went back inside, set the notice on the kitchen counter, and reheated my coffee for the 4th time. The microwave beeped with the tired resignation of an appliance that knew I would forget the mug again. I loved that house more than any sensible person should love a structure containing 2 unreliable toilets and a furnace that communicated exclusively through tapping noises. My wife Emily and I had bought it 21 years earlier, when Briar Glen was still mostly oak trees, gravel driveways, and families who borrowed ladders without requiring a liability waiver. We raised our daughter there. We buried 2 dogs beneath the maple tree. Every scratch in the hallway had a story, including one at shoulder height from the Christmas Emily tried to carry a fully assembled dollhouse upstairs at 2 o'clock in the morning. Emily had passed away 3 years earlier. The house was not just where I lived. It was the last place where every version of my life still existed at once. The mailbox mattered because my father had helped me build it. He had measured the post 4 times, accused the level of being defective, and written our house number on the side in pencil before we attached the brass numerals. His faint handwriting was still there, beneath the 1847. I wasn't eager to tear it out because somebody with a clipboard had discovered fractions. For 32 years, I had worked as a municipal structural inspector, which mostly meant spending my days explaining to contractors why optimism was not an approved load-bearing material. I had retired 6 months earlier with a pension, a bad right knee, and an instinctive distrust of anyone who quoted regulations without carrying the full codebook. So before touching the mailbox, I emailed the HOA. My message was 4 sentences long. Please provide the measurement method used to determine the alleged 0.75-inch deviation, the date and time of inspection, the name and qualifications of the inspector, and the specific architectural standard defining acceptable vertical tolerance. Once I receive those materials, I will review the notice. I signed it politely. At 9:04 the next morning, Patricia Wexler arrived. Patricia was the president of the Briar Glen Homeowners Association, chair of the Architectural Harmony Committee, founder of the Neighborhood Appearance Task Force, and, according to her email signature, Community Standards Liaison, a title she had apparently awarded herself during peacetime. She drove a pearl-white Lexus SUV, so clean it looked afraid of the outdoors. She parked half on my driveway and half on my grass, then stepped out wearing pressed khaki pants sharp enough to slice deli meat and a lemon-yellow polo shirt embroidered with the Briar Glen acorn logo over her heart, like a military decoration she had personally earned at the Battle of Mulch. Naturally, she carried a clipboard. The clipboard was enormous. It had silver corners, color-coded tabs, and the emotional energy of a courthouse annex. Patricia walked toward me with the stiff-backed posture of a four-star general inspecting troops who had failed to edge the sidewalk. "Mr. Mercer," she said. Her voice had the tonal quality of a fork caught in a garbage disposal. "Mrs. Wexler, President Wexler, in matters pertaining to association governance. Of course." She stopped beside the mailbox and tapped the post with a retractable pointer. I had never seen anyone bring a retractable pointer to a mailbox dispute. "This fixture," she said, "is visibly non-conforming." "Visible from where?" She blinked. "From the public right-of-way." "I'm standing in the public right-of-way." "You are standing too close." "How far away does the violation become visible?" She pursed her lips, like someone trying to swallow an olive containing legal advice. "The issue is not subjective visibility. The issue is measurable deviation. That's why I asked how it was measured." Patricia lifted her clipboard. "Our inspection team confirmed the variance." "Who's on the inspection team?" "The Architectural Harmony Committee." "Who physically measured it?" She flipped one page, then another, although both appeared to be blank forms. "The committee operates collectively, so nobody measured it." Her shoulders rose. "Mr. Mercer, Article 7, Section 4.2, Subparagraph C, clearly states that exterior fixtures must remain plumb, level, properly maintained, and visually harmonious. What's the allowed tolerance? The standard is plumb. Nothing built outdoors is perfectly plumb forever. That is your opinion. That is gravity." Patricia's face tightened like a drawstring bag containing several angry oranges. "You have 10 days, she said. "After that, fines will begin. I'll need the documents I requested. You have already received the relevant document. I received an accusation. You received a compliance notice. Then send me the inspection record." She leaned closer. "This kind of resistance only complicates matters." "No, paperwork usually clarifies them." That was the moment I first saw it. The tiny flicker behind her eyes when she realized I wasn't going to apologize and straighten the post before lunch. Patricia was accustomed to homeowners folding faster than a card table in a thunderstorm. She snapped her pointer shut. "If the mailbox is not corrected by the deadline, enforcement will proceed automatically." "Automatically through whom?" "The board." "You are the board president." "Yes. So manually, through you." She made a small sound like a goose discovering a parking ticket. Then she returned to her Lexus and drove away, leaving 2 tire tracks across my lawn in the name of visual harmony. I photographed them. I also photographed the mailbox from all 4 sides, measured the post with a calibrated digital level, and documented its actual deviation. It was not 3/4 of an inch. It was 5/8. Patricia had exaggerated my mailbox's lean by 1/8 of an inch, which was either incompetence or the smallest act of corruption in county history. 3 days later, I received a second letter. This one informed me that my failure to correct the violation demonstrated willful disregard for community standards. The correction period had not expired yet. I emailed again. "Please confirm whether the board is now issuing findings of willful noncompliance before the stated cure period has ended." No response. The following Monday, Patricia posted a message in the Briar Glen Neighbors Facebook group. She did not name me directly. She wrote, "It is unfortunate when certain residents believe decades of occupancy, exempt them from the same standards followed by responsible homeowners. Beneath the post, she attached a blurry photograph of my mailbox. The picture had been taken from approximately 40 yards away with so much digital zoom that the post looked like it had been photographed during a hostage situation. Comments appeared. Harold wrote, "Which mailbox?" Patricia deleted his comment. Then Linda Cho from number 1839 asked, "Isn't that mailbox on Mercer's property?" Patricia replied, "The association does not discuss active enforcement matters." She had started the discussion. By Thursday, I had accumulated $150 in fines. The fine schedule worked like a gym membership designed by pirates. $75 initially, $25 per day, plus a $40 administrative processing fee every time the system generated a new statement. I requested a hearing. Patricia scheduled it for 11:30 a.m. on a Wednesday, knowing most residents worked. I was retired, so I arrived at 11:15 with a binder. The Briar Glen clubhouse had fake stone columns, beige carpeting, and a framed mission statement that included the phrase, "Preserving harmonious residential character," 3 times. It smelled like lemon cleaner and old yoga mats. Patricia sat at the center of a folding table with 2 other board members. Dennis Lyle, the treasurer, who looked perpetually startled to find himself in public, and Marjorie Bell, the secretary, who wore a cardigan decorated with tiny wooden ducks. Patricia's clipboard rested in front of her. My binder rested in front of me. Hers had stickers. Mine had evidence. "Mr. Mercer," Patricia began, speaking like a flight attendant explaining why the aircraft could no longer return to the gate. "This hearing concerns your continuing violation under Article 7, Section 4.2, subparagraph C. Before we begin, are minutes being taken?" Marjorie raised a pen. "Yes." "Is the hearing being recorded?" Patricia frowned. "That is not required." "I'll record it myself then." I placed my phone on the table. Dennis looked at Patricia. Patricia looked at my phone as though it had begun emitting bees. "We do not consent to being recorded," she said. "This is a board disciplinary hearing concerning my property rights. State association law allows any participant to record it. That is an aggressive interpretation. It is 12 words. I slid copies of the statute across the table. Patricia refused to touch hers. I continued. "I requested the inspection report, measurement method, inspector identity, standard of tolerance, and photographic evidence. None were provided. The violation is self-evident. Then demonstrate it." Patricia glanced at Dennis. Dennis examined the ceiling tile above him like it contained an escape hatch. "You were given notice," she said. "Notice is not evidence. The board's determination is evidence. The board determined it before the cure period expired. We observed no corrective activity. You drove past my house? I conducted follow-up inspections. How many? As many as necessary. What dates? I don't recall. What times? I don't recall. Did you enter my property?" Patricia sat straighter. "The governing documents grant reasonable inspection access." That wasn't my question. Her expression froze like a computer trying to install an update during surgery. I approached the mailbox. "From the road?" I inspected it from an appropriate distance. "Did you step onto my lawn?" She exhaled sharply. "I may have crossed the property boundary by a negligible amount." "How negligible?" "This is not relevant. I have security footage of you walking 19 feet onto my lawn with a tape measure at 6:42 a.m. last Saturday." Dennis turned toward her. Marjorie stopped writing. Patricia's mouth opened and closed, like a goldfish reviewing zoning law. "You had no permission," I said, "and the mailbox is adjacent to a public road, so there was no reason to enter the property. I was performing association duties. You were wearing slippers." Dennis looked down, possibly to hide a smile. Patricia gathered her papers. "The board upholds the violation." "On what evidence?" "On the authority granted under Article 3, Section 2.1, Paragraph A." I opened my binder. That section covers election procedures. For 5 full seconds, the only sound in the room was the air conditioner rattling like a shopping cart full of soup cans. Patricia pointed at me with one manicured finger. "The mailbox is crooked, 5/8 of an inch. So you admit it. I measured it. You didn't. The decision stands." She ended the hearing. At 3:12 that afternoon, I received an email informing me that my account balance was now $415. That was when I almost lost my temper. Not because of the money, because Patricia had turned my father's mailbox into a test of obedience. I stood in my kitchen staring at the email, while my reheated coffee went cold beside me for the 6th time that day. I imagined marching to the clubhouse, setting the mailbox on the conference table, and asking if it was visually harmonious enough when viewed horizontally. Instead, I opened a spreadsheet. Anger is loud. Documentation has tabs. I built a timeline listing every letter, email, fine, photograph, driveway trespass, Facebook post, and contradictory statement. I indexed each event by date, time, relevant bylaw, applicable state statute, evidentiary value, and, because retirement had left me with too much energy, Patricia's outfit. By the end of the week, my spreadsheet contained 38 entries and 3 instances of lemon-yellow polo abuse. Then the police arrived. Officer Raymond Ellis pulled up at 10:06 on Saturday morning in a patrol car, dusted with pollen. He was a broad, weary man in his late 40s, whose face suggested he had spent 20 years hearing adults explain why their leaf blowers were matters of constitutional importance. Patricia's Lexus was already parked across my driveway. She stood beside the mailbox in a floral windbreaker that looked like a botanical garden had exploded inside a minivan. Clipboard in hand, Officer Ellis stepped out. "Mr. Mercer? That's me. We received a report of an unsafe roadside obstruction." I looked at the mailbox. He looked at the mailbox. Patricia pointed to it dramatically. "The post is leaning into the travel corridor. It was 4 feet from the pavement." Officer Ellis walked around it once. Then he leaned sideways, mimicking the post. "How unsafe are we saying this is?" Patricia clicked her pen. "Any deviation creates a foreseeable hazard." Article 7. "Ma'am, I don't enforce HOA articles. This is a public safety matter." Officer Ellis placed one hand on the mailbox and gave it a firm shake. It did not move. "Seems stable. The visual angle could distract drivers." "From driving?" "Yes." He looked down Plover Ridge Lane, where the most dangerous traffic event that morning had been Harold Dempsey steering a mobility scooter while carrying a baguette. Officer Ellis turned to me. "You planning to fix it?" I requested evidence supporting the violation. "They haven't provided any." Patricia spoke over me. "He is refusing lawful compliance." Officer Ellis sighed like a man whose soul had been placed on hold. "This isn't a police matter." Patricia's chin lifted. "I'd like that documented." "It will be. As an unsafe obstruction. As a mailbox." She made a noise like a tea kettle being informed it lacked jurisdiction. Officer Ellis returned to his car. Before leaving, he lowered the window. "Please stop calling emergency services about carpentry." Then he drove away. That afternoon, Patricia added a $100 public safety referral fee to my account. The HOA bylaws contained no public safety referral fee. I emailed asking for its authorization. She replied with a screenshot of the online payment portal. The following week, the board sent a certified letter threatening to suspend my clubhouse privileges, pool access, voting rights, and all other community amenities. I had not used the pool since 2008, when a child named Trevor sneezed directly into my mouth during Adult Swim. The clubhouse vending machine had contained the same spiral of powdered donuts since the first Obama administration. But voting rights mattered. So did the lien language in the final paragraph. If the outstanding balance of $790 remains unpaid, it said, the association reserves all rights available under governing documents and state law, including lien enforcement. Patricia had taken a 5/8-inch lien and inflated it into a threat against my home. That was the moment I decided to stop treating the situation like a mailbox dispute. I called Salvatore Moretti. Sal ran Moretti Monumental Works, a stone, metal, and custom fabrication company located in an industrial park 6 miles outside Bellwether County. I knew him from my inspection days, when I had once stopped his crew from installing a decorative fountain over an unmarked gas line. He had thanked me by sending a fruit basket containing no fruit, only cured meats. Sal was 61, shaped like a vending machine that had developed strong opinions about municipal permitting, and possessed eyebrows so dense they seemed capable of independent weather protection. When I entered his workshop, he was eating lasagna from a glass container while operating a forklift. "Jack Mercer," he shouted. The man who saved me from launching a granite cherub into low orbit. Morning, Sal. What brings you here? You need a tombstone? You look too healthy. I have a mailbox problem. He shut off the forklift. Tell me everything. I did. I showed him the notice, the fines, the photographs, and the section of the Briar Glen Declaration regulating mailboxes. Sal read silently, lips moving. Then he looked up. This says the mailbox itself must be black, white, bronze, or natural wood. Yes! Maximum height 48 inches. Yes. Uniform post style if attached to a post. Yes. He flipped the page. But freestanding decorative sculptures are governed under landscaping ornaments. That's how I read it. And landscaping ornaments can be up to 12 feet tall with architectural approval, unless they qualify as statuary commemorating agricultural heritage. Sal's eyebrows rose like two garage doors opening at once. I pointed to Article 9, Section 6.4. Those don't require architectural approval if they're placed outside the front setback, comply with sightline rules, and receive a city accessory structure permit. Sal read it twice. Then he slowly placed the page on the workbench. What exactly are you thinking? I'm thinking bronze. How much bronze? 12 feet. His grin spread across his face like sunrise over a junkyard. You came to the right lunatic. I need it completely legal. Jack, my work is so legal it makes inspectors emotional. I was an inspector. Exactly. You cried all the time. I never cried. You cried inside. That's where inspectors keep it. He walked to a rack of design catalogs and pulled down a binder labeled Oversized Avian. I stared at it. You already have a bird section? I have 3. Domestic, predatory, and biblical. He opened the domestic section. There were geese, ducks, turkeys, peacocks, and one alarming swan fountain whose eyes seemed to follow me. Then Sal turned the page. There it was, a full-scale bronze rooster. The existing mold had been created for a farm museum in northern Marbury. The original casting stood 9 feet tall, but Sal said the pattern could be enlarged digitally to 12 feet from spur to comb. It would weigh 2,840 pounds. The tail feathers would sweep 8 feet across. The chest would be broad enough to conceal a code-compliant mailbox compartment. The whole statue could be mounted on a reinforced concrete foundation, positioned 26 feet behind the road, outside the subdivision's front setback, and beyond the county site triangle. What would it cost? I asked. Sal named a number. I stared at him. That's more than my first house. Your first house didn't have feathers. I can't spend that. He scratched his chin. Then he asked whether I remembered the fountain incident. I remember. You saved my company about 80 grand in damage and probably kept my cousin Nicky from becoming the first man prosecuted for weaponizing a cherub. That was my job. Yeah, well, gratitude is my hobby. I've got reclaimed bronze from a canceled hotel project. Client paid the deposit and vanished into bankruptcy. You cover labor, foundation, permit fees, and transport. He wrote a new number. It was still absurd, but it was an absurdity I could afford. Sal leaned across the workbench. People like your Patricia don't understand rules, he said. They understand obedience. So give her exactly what she asked for, and make it visible from space. I would have followed that man into a volcano. The next 3 weeks were the calmest of Patricia's life. She mistook my silence for surrender. I let her. I paid none of the fines, but I sent formal disputes for each one within the required deadline. I requested the HOA's insurance policy, financial statements, enforcement procedures, hearing records, and board meeting minutes under the state's Common Interest Community Act. Patricia ignored the requests. That was entry 49 in the spreadsheet. Meanwhile, Sal and I made the rooster bulletproof, not literally, structurally. I commissioned a boundary survey from Evelyn Park, a licensed surveyor who wore steel-toed boots, cat-eye glasses, and the expression of a woman who had personally defeated several property lines in combat. Evelyn located the exact front setback, county right-of-way, utility easement, and traffic sight triangle. She marked the approved statue location with an iron pin. 26 feet, 4 inches from the pavement, she said. 9 feet, 2 inches outside the HOA setback restriction. No easement conflict, no visibility obstruction. Completely legal? She looked at the regulations. Legally, this is agricultural commemorative statuary. It's also a mailbox. Internally. Does that matter? The postal compartment is an accessory component. The statue is not the support post. She smiled. This is the dumbest correct thing I've approved all year. Next came the city permit. The accessory structure application required engineered foundation drawings because of the statue's height and weight. I designed the footing myself, then had it reviewed and stamped by Calvin Brooks, a structural engineer who spoke so slowly that every sentence arrived like a refrigerator being delivered upstairs. Calvin examined the drawings. 36-inch reinforced concrete pier, he said. Number 5 rebar cage. Galvanized anchor bolts. Wind rating 120 miles per hour. Yes. He looked at the Rooster rendering. You expecting hurricanes? I'm expecting Patricia. He nodded once. Use 6 anchors. The city zoning department approved the permit in 4 business days. The Postal Service approved the mailbox insert after I submitted a diagram showing the height, access door, carrier approach, and road clearance. The county confirmed the Rooster did not require a sign permit because it contained no commercial text. The fire department did not care. Animal control laughed for 45 seconds and then transferred me back to zoning. Finally, I sent the HOA a certified letter. It contained notice of my intent to remove the disputed mailbox and replace it with a compliant blackmail receptacle integrated into an agricultural heritage statue, pursuant to Article 9, Section 6.4. Attached were the permit, survey, engineering stamp, postal approval, and a copy of the relevant declaration provision. Patricia signed for the envelope at 2:11 p.m. At 2:19, she called me. Absolutely not. Good afternoon, Patricia. You cannot install livestock imagery in Briar Glen. It's not livestock imagery. It is a rooster. It's agricultural heritage statuary. Her breathing grew louder, like someone inflating a pool toy with righteous indignation. The board has not approved this. The declaration exempts commemorative agricultural statuary from board approval. That clause refers to tasteful rural accents. It doesn't say tasteful. It is implied. Implied standards aren't enforceable. The board determines community harmony. The city determines land use. We will seek an injunction. On what grounds? Visual nuisance. The HOA documents contain no visual nuisance standard. It will reduce property values. Do you have an appraisal? She paused. You haven't even told me how large it is. 12 feet. Silence. Not ordinary silence. This was the vast, cathedral silence that follows when a person's brain leaves the room without collecting its coat. 12 feet what? She asked. 12 feet tall. You are not installing a 12-foot rooster. The permit says I am. This conversation is over. You called me. She hung up. The work began the next Monday at 7:30 a.m. Sal arrived first in a red pickup truck carrying 6 men, 8 traffic cones, 2 thermoses, and a portable speaker, playing Italian opera loudly enough to make the oak trees reconsider their heritage. Behind him came a mini excavator, then a concrete truck, then a flatbed carrying the rooster under a gray tarp. Even covered, it looked enormous, like someone had kidnapped a church steeple and taught it to sit. Neighbors emerged from their houses. Harold brought a lawn chair. Linda Cho brought muffins. 3 children from the Patel family arrived wearing bicycle helmets, apparently anticipating either construction or battle. Sal climbed down from his truck wearing an orange safety vest over a black tank top. "Morning, Jack," he said. "Beautiful day for legally significant poultry." We fenced the work area, posted the permit in a weatherproof sleeve, and laid plywood over the lawn to protect the grass. At 7:44, Patricia arrived. Her Lexus stopped so abruptly that the front end dipped like a horse refusing a bridge. She jumped out, wearing white capri pants, gold sandals, and a coral blouse with ruffled sleeves that made her look like an expensive throw pillow experiencing a crisis. Clipboard. Always the clipboard. "What is happening?" she demanded. Sal looked at the excavator. "Breakfast patio." She pointed at the permit sign. "You do not have authorization." I handed her a duplicate packet. City permit, postal approval, engineering certification, survey, and declaration exemption. She did not take it. I issued a verbal stop work order. Sal glanced at me. "Is she with the city?" "No." "County?" "No." "State?" "No." Sal smiled. "Then that's not a stop work order. That's a suggestion wearing lipstick." Patricia's head snapped toward him. And you are? Salvatore Moretti. Moretti Monumental Works. I will hold your company liable for any damage to association property. We're 26 feet inside Jack's boundary. This entire neighborhood is association property. Evelyn Park, who had stopped by to verify placement, looked up from her survey equipment. No, it isn't. Patricia turned. Who are you? The person who knows where your property ends. Evelyn pointed at the iron pin. It ends over there. Patricia looked at the pin the way medieval sailors probably looked at the edge of a map. You cannot excavate without utility markings. Sal gestured toward the red, yellow, blue, and orange paint flags. Those decorations aren't for Mardi Gras. You cannot pour concrete without inspection. The city inspector's truck pulled up behind her. Calvin Brooks stepped out holding a hard hat. I'm here for inspection, he said, each word moving at the pace of continental drift. Patricia stared at him, then at me, then at the tarp-covered rooster. What is under there? Sal folded his arms. Community harmony. The inspector approved the excavation at 8:22. The crew lowered the rebar cage, placed the anchor template, and poured 4.8 cubic yards of concrete. Patricia remained on the roadside for the entire process, pacing with the furious, constrained movement of a vacuum cleaner, trapped under a dining chair. At one point, she began photographing every worker. Nikki Moretti posed with a shovel. At 9:10, she called the police. Officer Raymond Ellis arrived again. He stepped from his patrol car, saw me, saw Patricia, saw the excavator, and closed his eyes for one full second. Mailbox? He asked. Evolution of Mailbox, I said. Patricia rushed toward him. They are erecting an unauthorized industrial structure. Officer Ellis looked at the permit. Looks authorized. Not by the HOA. Is that criminal? It violates community standards. Still not criminal. They are disturbing the peace. At that exact moment, the opera track ended. The worksite became silent except for a bird chirping in Harold's hedge. Officer Ellis looked at Sal. Can you keep the music reasonable? Sal nodded. I'll switch to Sinatra. Fine. Patricia pointed at the gray tarp. You need to inspect what they're concealing. Officer Ellis looked at me. Anything illegal under there? Bronze rooster. He stared at me. How big? 12 feet. He looked toward the tarp again, then back at Patricia. Ma'am, they have permits, utility clearance, a survey, and an inspector. I cannot arrest a statue before it's standing. I am demanding enforcement. You have demanded it. And now it has happened. She blinked. What does that mean? It means I looked. Officer Ellis returned to his patrol car. As he drove away, he lowered the window and delivered his verdict. Everybody please, let the chicken finish construction. The foundation, cured for 7 days. Patricia spent all 7 trying to stop it. She emailed the mayor. She contacted the county agricultural office and reported fraudulent heritage representation. She filed an emergency architectural complaint with her own board, then scheduled a special meeting at a time when Dennis Lyle was on vacation and Marjorie Bell was attending her granddaughter's dance recital. She declared the statue an unapproved religious symbol, though she never explained which religion worshipped mail-delivering roosters. She sent me a cease and desist letter written by a lawyer named Victor Crane. I called Victor. He sounded embarrassed before I finished introducing myself. Mr. Mercer, he said, my office was retained to communicate the association's concerns. We have not independently verified the board's factual claims. Did Patricia tell you the project has city approval? There was a pause. No. Did she send you the declaration exemption? Another pause. No. Did she tell you the statue replaces a mailbox she fined me for? A longer pause. She described it as retaliatory industrial art. I emailed him the full file. Victor withdrew the letter 11 minutes later. Entry 67. Installation day arrived clear and warm. At 8 a.m., Sal's flatbed returned. This time, there was no tarp. The rooster lay strapped to a custom steel cradle, 12 feet from claw to comb, cast in dark bronze with polished highlights along the chest, beak, and tail feathers. It was magnificent. It was absurd. It looked like Napoleon had been reincarnated as poultry, and immediately commissioned an equestrian portrait without the horse. The breastplate concealed a regulation black mailbox door. Our brass house numbers, when 2047, were mounted beneath one wing. My father's original pencil markings had been preserved on a cedar panel inside the compartment. The rooster's tail curled upward in 6 sweeping feathers, each individually textured. Its spurs were blunted for safety. Its eyes had been cast slightly downward, giving it the expression of a tax auditor who had just found something interesting. A crane followed the flatbed. By 8:15, half the neighborhood had gathered. People brought coffee, folding chairs, donuts, and one homemade sign reading, "Welcome, Lord Cluckington." I did not make the sign. I did not remove it. Patricia arrived at 8:23 in her golf cart. She had apparently decided the Lexus lacked sufficient command presence. The golf cart was navy blue, fitted with an amber flashing light, and displayed magnetic signs reading Briar Glen Community Patrol. No such patrol existed. She wore a wide-brimmed sun hat, a navy blazer, and white gloves. White gloves. For a construction dispute. She drove directly through the cones and stopped beside the crane. Sal shouted, "Ma'am, active lifting zone." Patricia climbed out. "I am the HOA president. The crane doesn't care." She walked toward the suspended rooster with her clipboard raised like a shield. The crane operator had just lifted the statue 6 inches off the cradle. "Lower that immediately," Patricia shouted. The operator stopped. Sal approached her. "You need to move behind the barrier. I am ordering this installation halted. You were warned in writing that the permitted installation would proceed today. I reject the permit. You're not a zoning department. I reject the exemption. You're not the declaration. I reject the interpretation." Sal looked at me. Can she reject gravity? Give her time. Patricia's face reddened like a tomato receiving difficult financial news. She stepped farther into the work zone. Sal raised one hand. "Patricia, I'm warning you. You cannot stand beneath a suspended load. I am exercising inspection authority under Article 5, Section 3.7. There is no Article 5, Section 3.7 inspection authority," I said. "There is now an emergency." "What emergency?" "That." She pointed at the rooster. The rooster remained suspended, calm and legally documented. I held out a copy of the permit packet. "Everything has been approved. Please step outside the barrier." "No." "Patricia, no. If you proceed while I am standing here, you will knowingly endanger an association officer." Sal's expression changed. Not anger, recognition. He had just realized she intended to create the appearance that we were forcing her to remain in danger. He turned to the crane operator. "Lower it back onto the cradle." The rooster settled safely. Then Sal shut down the equipment. Patricia smiled. It was the satisfied smile of a person who had lain down in front of a parked bicycle and declared victory over transportation. "I thought so," she said. I took out my phone. "You've stopped the installation by entering a restricted work zone after being warned. I am authorized to inspect. You're trespassing on my property. The governing documents grant access. Reasonable access for legitimate association purposes, after notice, during normal hours. This is normal hours. This is not a legitimate inspection. City officials have already approved the work. I disagree." "Then leave and seek a court order." "I will not." That was her final mistake, because Patricia had created the access rule she was invoking. 2 years earlier, she had pushed through an amendment granting HOA officers temporary access to private lots, only when investigating an immediate threat to health or safety. The amendment also required the officer to document the emergency, identify the hazard, limit the inspection to 15 minutes, and leave immediately if ordered by a city or county official. Patricia had forgotten the last part. I had not. At 8:31, City Building Inspector Colin Reeves arrived for the final anchor inspection. Colin was thin, sunburned, and carried a tablet in a rubber case thick enough to survive artillery. He examined the rooster, the footing, the crane setup, and the anchor bolts. Then he noticed Patricia standing inside the barrier. "Ma'am, you need to leave the work area. I am conducting an HOA inspection. This is a permitted construction site. I have concurrent authority." "No, you don't." Her clipboard tilted. "I am the president of the governing association, and I'm the building official. You cannot interfere with private covenants." "I'm not. I'm telling you to leave an active lifting zone." "I refuse." Colin looked at me. "Is she on your property?" "Yes." "Do you want her there?" "No." He turned back to Patricia. "You need to leave now." She lifted her chin. "Under Article 5, Section 3.7. I have emergency access rights. I opened the declaration. Article 5, Section 3.7, Paragraph F. I read, any association representative exercising emergency access shall immediately comply with directives issued by municipal, county, state, or federal officials having jurisdiction over the alleged hazard. Patricia's eyes flicked down to her clipboard. She had authored the amendment. Her name appeared beneath it. Colin held out his hand. Outside the barrier. She did not move, so he called the police. Officer Ellis arrived at 8:44. He parked behind the golf cart and walked toward us with the slow, depleted gait of a man approaching a restaurant table that had already complained about the ice. He looked at the Rooster. He stopped. He looked up, and slightly farther up. That's the mailbox? Integrated mailbox, I said. He nodded once. Of course it is. Patricia rushed to him. Speaking so quickly her words collided like shopping carts in a windstorm. This structure is an intentional nuisance, an unauthorized monument, a retaliatory visual assault, and a violation of Article 7, Section 4.2, subparagraph C, as well as the implied aesthetic principles of the governing declaration. Officer Ellis looked at Colin. Permit valid? Yes. Site compliant? Yes. Any safety problem? Her. Officer Ellis turned to Patricia. You've been directed to leave the work zone. I have inspection rights. You've been directed by the city inspector to leave. He is misinterpreting his authority. Officer Ellis exhaled. Ma'am, this is private property. The owner wants you off it. The city inspector wants you out of the lifting zone. You need to go. I will not be bullied. No one is bullying you. She pointed at the Rooster. That is bullying. The entire neighborhood heard her. Harold dropped a donut into his lap. A child near the curb whispered, "The chicken bullied her." Officer Ellis kept his face professionally neutral, though one corner of his mouth had begun twitching like a curtain in a draft. Last warning, he said. Step outside the barrier. Patricia's eyes darted around. She saw the neighbors, the phones recording, the city inspector, the police officer, the crane, the Rooster. And because Patricia Wexler had never encountered a hole she couldn't improve by continuing to dig, she climbed onto the concrete footing. The Rooster's empty mounting bolts surrounded her white sandals. This foundation is association property, she declared. No, it isn't, Evelyn Park called from the crowd. Patricia ignored her. I am placing myself on the disputed structure. Any attempt to continue installation will constitute reckless endangerment and assault upon a board officer. Nobody moved. Nobody needed to. Patricia had finally created her own trap. She had trespassed after warning, disobeyed a city official, obstructed permitted construction, and announced her intention to manufacture a safety claim in front of 32 witnesses and at least 9 recording phones. Officer Ellis held out his hand. Step down. No, Mrs. Wexler. President Wexler. Step down. She clutched her clipboard to her chest. I am protecting this community. Then one of the crane's airlines released pressure. It made a perfectly normal hiss. Patricia reacted as though the Rooster had crowed directly into her nervous system. She spun around, stepped between 2 anchor bolts, and lost one sandal. Her arms windmilled. The clipboard flew into the air. She did not fall. Instead, she performed a frantic 3-step shuffle across the footing, grabbed the Rooster's mounting cradle for balance, and landed seated in a shallow plastic tub of Bolt lubricant. The tub was bright blue. The lubricant was harmless, biodegradable, and thick. When Patricia stood up, the back of her white capri pants looked like she had sat on a blueberry pie during an earthquake. Her sun hat had fallen over one eye. The clipboard landed face down in a tray of wet marking paint. Nobody laughed at first. There is a special kind of silence that occurs when 30 adults are trying not to become legally relevant. Then Harold snorted. That broke the dam. The children laughed. Linda Cho turned away and covered her face. Sal bit down on his fist. Even Colin Reeves coughed into his elbow with suspicious intensity. Patricia stood on the footing, blue from hip to knee, trembling with fury. This was deliberate. Sal raised both hands. You climbed into the bolt tray. You sabotaged me. With gravity? Officer Ellis stepped forward. Mrs. Wexler, you are being removed from the work zone. She pointed a blue-smeared finger at me. He planned this entire spectacle to humiliate me. I sent you the permit. I said. You concealed the scale. I told you 12 feet. You said 12 feet tall. That is how height works. Her mouth tightened. Then she made the statement that ended her presidency. I don't care what the permit says, she shouted. I don't care what the declaration says. I decide what is allowed in this neighborhood. Marjorie Bell had arrived 5 minutes earlier. She stood beside Linda Cho, holding her phone. Dennis Lyle was watching through a video call from his hotel balcony. Victor Crane, the HOA's attorney, had been placed on speakerphone by Marjorie after she saw the police arrive. Everyone heard Patricia. Victor's voice came through the phone. Mrs. Wexler, please stop speaking. She spun toward Marjorie. Why is he on the phone? Because you called an emergency board action without notifying us, Marjorie said. This is not your concern. I'm the board secretary. I can remove you. Victor spoke again. You cannot. Patricia grabbed for Marjorie's phone. Marjorie stepped back. Officer Ellis moved between them. That's enough. Patricia froze. The amber light on her golf cart continued flashing behind her, silently announcing an emergency consisting entirely of herself. Officer Ellis escorted her outside the barrier. He did not handcuff her. He did not cite her immediately. He simply placed her beside the golf cart and explained, in a voice flat enough to level flooring, that returning to the worksite would result in a trespass citation and possible obstruction charge. She climbed into the cart. The blue stain on her pants left a matching blue crescent on the white vinyl seat. Before driving away, she turned toward the crowd. You will all regret supporting this. Harold raised his donut. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Patricia drove off. The amber light flashed all the way around the corner. At 9:03, the crane restarted. The rooster rose. Its bronze wings caught the sunlight. The tail feathers passed over the oak branches, casting a shadow across the lawn like a prehistoric weather event. Sal guided the statue into place, while Colin watched the anchor alignment. The base settled onto the footing. 6 galvanized bolts slid perfectly through 6 mounting holes. Calvin's design fit on the first attempt. I have never experienced a purer professional joy. The crew tightened the nuts to specification, installed the mailbox door, and polished the bronze. At 10:26, Sal handed me the mailbox key. Congratulations, he said. You now receive junk mail through a national landmark. The mail carrier arrived at 11:05. Her name was Denise Carter. She drove up, stopped beside the rooster, and stared through the windshield. Then she climbed out. Is this 1847? Yes. She looked at the brass numbers, then at the mailbox compartment, then up at the rooster's head. I was told there'd be a replacement box. This is it. She opened the access door. It met every postal specification. Denise placed 3 envelopes and a furniture catalog inside. Then she shut the door. I'm putting this route up for seniority bidding, she said. The rooster remained. Patricia's presidency did not. By noon, Marjorie and Dennis had called an emergency board meeting for that evening. 47 homeowners attended, which was 42 more than the annual budget meeting. Victor Crane appeared by video and advised the board that Patricia's actions had exposed the association to claims for selective enforcement, unauthorized fines, denial of records, improper access, retaliatory conduct, and interference with permitted construction. He also revealed that Patricia had contacted him using HOA funds, but had withheld the permit packet and declaration exemption. Dennis reviewed the mailbox inspection records. There were none. Marjorie reviewed the fine authorization. Patricia had issued every fine herself without a board vote. The $100 public safety referral fee had been invented. So had 2 administrative charges. Then Linda Cho asked for a review of other enforcement actions. That opened a door Patricia had spent 4 years nailing shut. Harold had been fined $300 because his porch swing was visually inconsistent, though identical swings appeared in the approved design catalog. Linda had been warned for leaving a child's bicycle visible for 40 minutes. The Patels had been fined because their Diwali lights remained up 9 hours beyond the holiday decoration deadline. Martha Ruiz had received a violation for planting purple flowers in a bed where the approved landscaping plan listed seasonal color. Patricia had created a private government with the budget of a bake sale and the temperament of a collapsing empire. The board voted 2-1 to suspend her authority pending a membership recall. Patricia voted against. At the recall meeting 12 days later, 86% of participating homeowners voted to remove her. Her removal speech lasted 17 minutes. It included the phrases, mob mentality, architectural anarchy, and weaponized farm decor. The bronze rooster watched through the clubhouse window. The association's insurance carrier reviewed the enforcement complaints and declined to cover any claim arising from Patricia's unauthorized actions. Victor negotiated a settlement. All $1,140 in fines and fees against me were erased. The HOA reimbursed my $680 survey cost and $450 permit expenses. I waived any additional claim on the condition that the board adopt written enforcement procedures, require evidence before fines, prohibit individual officers from entering private property without documented legal authority, and remove Patricia's self-created community patrol signs from the golf cart. The golf cart itself belonged to the HOA. Dennis sold the Amber Light at a community yard sale for $9. I bought it. The HOA did not collapse. It became boring, which was better. Marjorie Bell was elected president. Her inaugural speech took 11 seconds. Pay your dues, don't block the road, and try to keep things reasonable. Yeah? Everyone applauded. The hedges grew a little wild that summer. Children left bicycles in driveways. Harold replaced his porch swing with one 2 inches wider, purely for spiritual reasons. Martha Ruiz planted purple, orange, yellow, and red flowers in the same bed, until it looked like a rainbow had fallen down and decided to rent. One evening, Linda Cho knocked on my door with a pie. She stood on the porch, glanced toward the road, and smiled. My daughter calls him Clementine. The rooster? She says all important statues need names. Clementine's a hen's name. She's 6. I wouldn't challenge her authority. Neither would I. Patricia listed her house 4 months later. It sold for $18,000 below asking after prospective buyers repeatedly asked whether the 12-foot rooster across the street came with the neighborhood. She moved to a condominium in downtown Bellwether, where the mailboxes are indoors, uniformly aligned, and managed by people with actual keys. Clementine still stands at 1847 Plover Ridge Lane. The bronze has begun developing a soft green patina along the tail feathers. The postal door works perfectly. The foundation has not shifted 1 millimeter. Every now and then, someone slows down to take a picture. My father's pencil marks are still inside, and my mailbox is no longer 5/8 of an inch crooked. It's 12 feet tall and visible from 3 counties. So tell me in the comments, what would you have installed if your HOA complained about your mailbox? Tap like, subscribe, and come back to Sovereign Judgment for more stories where petty authority meets professionally engineered consequences. Patricia wanted visual harmony. Clementine gave her something to crow about.